Welcome to another episode of Coffee with my dad. You got your coffee?
I do. Well, it's caffeinated chocolate milk, but some people, they call it a mocha, right? But it's definitely not a pour over with some Ethiopian special thing.
This is a naturally processed Ethiopian pour over.
How did I know?
In my defense, I made coffee for church as part of a sermon illustration, and the Colombian beans that I was using I didn't think would be as fragrant, and the fragrance was part of like the illustration, so I had to go get good beans. So that's why I have these specifically. Normally it's not my go-to, but
if I wasn't literally putting it in chocolate milk, and I think I'd be a little more picky, but I'm literally putting a shot of espresso into chocolate milk, and that's what it is. So
and you don't want an Ethiopian for that because it won't punch through the milk and the chocolate, and it'll just taste like you're drinking chocolate milk, and you want the chocolate and the coffee together. That's what makes it good.
This is actually a blend of whatever we had in the cupboard, because you know how you've seen the coffee cupboard where we've got like 8 different bags of just that much left in the beans, so not really enough to do anything with, so we just threw that all in the grinder and mixed it up, and that's what's coming out.
Nice.
So, there's some medium roast something, there's some French roast from Starbucks from a year ago. God only knows, because I don't remember anymore what's in here.
That's awesome. Speaking of coffee, go ahead.
No, you first.
I was up last night I was up while Milo was up, and I did some research as we talked about caffeine and like how long it stays in your system.
Yeah.
So caffeine has a half-life, which is like how long it takes the caffeine in your system to decrease by half. It has a half-life of 3 to 6 hours. They say about 5 hours is average. Depends on your metabolism, your tolerance, sensitivity, etc. So if you drink, 1 cup of coffee that has 2 shots of espresso, something like you're drinking right now, it's probably about 160-ish milligrams of caffeine. In about 5 hours, there will be, assuming you've had no other caffeine, chocolate's got a little more caffeine in it too, so maybe we'll say 180. 180 in your system at the end of that cup. 5 hours from now, give or take, there will be 60 milligrams of caffeine in your system. Another 5 hours, there will be 30 milligrams of caffeine. So it can stay in your system for not just 12 hours, but they've done studies and found that people's cognition was improved, like memory recall, on caffeine 16 hours later was better than the placebo. So there are studies to suggest that it'll stay in your system for a way longer period of time than just 6 hours.
Jeez. So if I'm drinking one of these every day, I'm just like, how come I'm not?
That's kind of
what
it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of scary. Maybe I need to cut back.
It is. I had pre-workout and 3 cups of pour-over coffee, which, I thought if I cut off by 3, I'm good. But I was up, like, wide awake at, like, from 1 to about 4. I was just awake. And I'm like, what the heck? I read a while. Maybe it was the, like, 500 or 600 milligrams of caffeine in my system. That's actually why I did the research. I'm like, this would be good to like share with Dad.
You know what? You should have called Mom. Mom was up also. We split a little pint or whatever they are, little Ben and Jerry size thing. We split one that was like coffee ice cream. And I crashed. I slept like a baby, but Mom, she got up this morning. She's like, no, I got up and sewed for hours, and I said, it was light when I got up, and I slept in. She's like, yeah, it was almost light when I went to sleep, and so you two could have had a chat.
Honestly, I think you and Ben are not that caffeine sensitive, because he'll drink coffee at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. He'll be like, whatever. Go to bed, an hour later he's fine. But me, I'm very caffeine sensitive. So maybe I got that from Mom, and Ben got his tolerance from you.
I'm probably somewhere in between. I'm not like Ben.
Okay.
If I drink this at 8 o'clock at night, I'm not going to sleep either. The problem is my body will be tired, but I'll just be boing, so I won't be useful either. Because I'm
That's
a
fair.
morning dude. Like, I like to wake the sun up in the morning. That's
Yeah,
funny.
I used to think you were crazy for that, but now that I have a child and like responsibilities, I can get like it's nice to have that space in the morning where I'm not needed. There's really nothing else to do, so I can just do whatever I need to focus on before my attention gets pulled this way or that. So I
Exactly.
like being an early morning person, but if I want to wake up before Milo, that has to be at 4, like literally 4 a.m. if I want to beat Milo by an hour or so.
Yeah, that's tough.
So I'm not really there yet.
No,
But
and he'll
working
he'll
on it.
figure it out too, where he'll sleep. You know, it's going to be about a month after the new one is born that he'll start sleeping. Watch.
Yeah.
But what you described is exactly what it is for me. Like being more of an introverted guy, meaning my energy does not come from hanging around with people. My energy comes from like my quiet time. If I when I had to go into the office and people start pulling on me and need different things and all of that, I need that time in the morning. So getting up and going to the office even and being there at 6 o'clock when nobody else was there. Maybe one other guy, maybe Tony was there. And the two of us were kind of the same. We did not want to talk to a bunch
Yeah,
of
I can
people.
see
We were
that.
like, hey, what's going on? Cup of coffee. We'd chit chat, and then we'd go and we'd have our quiet time. And then the people come in and pull on us, and it was fine because I got my stuff. Like I took care of me first, and then I was able to be there for them.
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Well, what's on your mind today, man? We've been talking coffee, but
Yeah. I really wanted to ask you in the last episode about, and we just didn't have time, about what that transition period was like. I say transition, but just what was life like? What was your experience after you made that decision in the office? Like the guy presented the gospel, and he said you have a decision to make, and you said, "Well, it's an easy decision." Like
yeah.
what from there, like choosing to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, from that moment on, if you could just describe the next couple moments, days, weeks, years, like what was that like? Was it, I mean, sunshine roses? Was it like I don't know, a gauntlet? What did you experience? Like what was that like for you?
So many things. That was a really gnarly time for me. And I don't mean gnarly as in bad. Um, the memory I have, the word that comes to mind is, in some ways, it was kind of chaotic, but not manic, not frenetic chaotic. But there were just several unsettled things all happening at once for me, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so I was almost a young adult, right? I was like 20 years old. So I wasn't really a young adult yet. I mean, legally I was. Depends on how, you look at all of that. But I was far from mature. Say that.
Yeah.
I was learning to live life on my own because I had moved out of our house. I'd moved away from Grandma Liz when I was 18 and ended up actually living with my girlfriend's family. So I rented part of their basement downstairs.
Okay.
And so that just made it, I mean, all kinds of gnarly was going on, right? When I came to know Christ and I'd made this decision, I want to follow that path instead of the path that I was on. I didn't even know what following that path meant. And the guy that introduced me to the gospel, he kind of mentored me. If you asked him, he would tell you he was a mentor to me. And in some ways had a fantastic library of really influential Bible teachers and ministers that I could just borrow tapes and cassettes and books anytime I wanted. So, and I just was devouring that stuff up. Well, actually, time out. Not quite yet. I wasn't there yet because we lived several hours away. So I was still in the Bay Area. And this guy was in the Bay Area a couple days a week for work and then went back to where he lived a couple of hours away.
Okay.
In the office was another guy, and his name was Jim. Jim was an interesting dude for a lot of reasons, but he kind of took me under his wing. Him and his wife Dory, basically, they were like, "Hey, that decision you made, that is awesome, and we're so excited for you. And you know, there's more than just that decision, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't have any idea what you're talking about." And they're like, "You ought to just come to church with us." Like, nah, I've been to church. Not into that. I mean, really. Because when he said church, I instantly thought Catholic Church. Right?
Sure.
I'm like, nah. And they're like, "No, you really should." And it wasn't until about 3 weeks later that I agreed and I said, "Sure, I'll go to church with you." So I go to church and I did not know. Derek, I'm like, what is going on here? This is not church. Everybody was happy. Everybody was super friendly. They're drinking coffee and there's donuts in the lobby. And then my mind was blown because we're in this room and it doesn't look like church, right? It looks like a meeting room, an auditorium, right? It looked great, but
Sure.
it still was just, everything was kind of modern and 1990s modern, by the way. Like, if you think modern, like 1990s kind of modern. Yeah. And then my head exploded when they started singing and started, like, it was like praise and worship time. And they were singing songs that sounded like could have been on the radio. Like more contemporary genre, like it's got a beat to it. I'm hearing harmonies. I'm like, what is going on here? And I don't know the words. What? They're up on the screen? I can read them up there? I don't have to know page 476 for today and read it? And so, I mean, I'm like, I do not understand what's going on here, but I'm along for the ride, man. Let me do it. And so that was kind of my introduction to church. Was a whole different experience, right, than what I had been accustomed to. So kind of understanding, church and getting acclimated with that was going on. It was really, I went to church with them pretty consistently, right, while I was there.
Okay.
And they're the ones that introduced me to, like, hey, there's God the Father, there's Jesus, God the Son, and there's the Holy Spirit. And they introduced me, and we went through Scripture and saw about being filled with the Holy Spirit. And what does that mean? And I'm like, how about that? So they're kind of just basic doctrine. They were kind of discipling me, right? It's the way we would understand it now, you and I talking about it. So while that's going on, and I'm getting a little bit of a foundation, at the same time, I'm having, this girl that I had been living with, her family, rented the downstairs, from them, their basement and all that. And I'm like, this is not going anywhere. I need out of this. This is just not, this is not what I need to be doing. And I had this great big family Bible. It's a Catholic Bible. It's huge. It's actually right up here in the cover. I should have grabbed it if I knew we were going to talk about this. And it's the only Bible I had. So it's thick, and I'm reading. I don't know where to start, but I'm like, there's Old Testament, New Testament. As I flip through it, I'm like, Old Testament looks boring. I'm going to go with New. So I start with Matthew. And I just started reading Matthew because I didn't know what else to do. And I'm reading. And then after I'd read for a bit, I kind of stopped, and I'm like, yeah, Lord, I know this is not going anywhere with this girl. And that's clear to me. And that's fine. But you know what? I've kind of invested a lot into this relationship, and I don't want to do this 12 times. Just connect me with, I just want to skip to, who it is that I'll spend the rest of my life with. And I don't remember exactly the words I said, but I do remember very clearly the next thought in my mind, are you ready for somebody like this? And I kid you not, Derek, I never saw a face. I didn't see a body type, but all of the attributes. If I just rattled them off, you would be like, that's my mom. And It was not the kind of woman I thought I was interested in at the time. It was a different profile that I thought that I was very interested in. But I think that's why he
Yeah.
worded it like, "Are you ready for somebody like this?" Because I needed to go like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, yeah." So then it was a couple of months later that I met your mom, and we would fall in love, and that's a whole other story. But part of so lots of things going on, right? I'm kind of learning what the Christian walk is. I'm getting a taste of it. I didn't really learn what the Christian walk is, I'll be honest with you, for years later. But I actually moved. I ended up moving away from the Bay Area. And I moved to Sacramento area. Um, got into a church there that mom's family had been going to, and it was great. It's a good teaching church, and it was really good for me. That's where I was baptized. The day I was baptized, your mom was cutting my hair. She had volunteered to cut my
Really?
hair for me. If I needed a haircut, she's like, "I'll do it." I'm like, "Okay." So I got like a 2 hour haircut, and it was half done before I had to leave and go get ready to go to church so I could be baptized. She was so nervous to like all that.
Oh, I bet.
So that's happening. I'm also struggling. Like at that time, I was struggling work and financially. I had some really good jobs in high school and just out of high school. I worked for a flagpole company in San Francisco, and the guy that owned it is a family business, so it's been around for a year, like 100 years kind of thing in San
Oh,
Francisco.
wow.
And the guy that owned it was my soccer coach. He hired me. It was a really good job, and I left there and I worked for Costco for a little while, and so I had good like employment. But then I got right before I came to know Christ, I got involved with like some entrepreneurial kind of business stuff, and
Okay.
I struggled with that. And so I wasn't really making money, and I was having trouble supporting myself, and I was wrestling with the idea that okay, so I've made this decision to follow Christ, and all my problems are over. My worries should be over, right? Because like, give me your yoke, I'll take your, all of the things and that we hear, or that
Yeah.
maybe people hear about. Oh, if you just follow God, life gets easy for you. It was 100% the opposite for me. Everything in my life got harder. Everything got harder. And partly because I think I was expecting God to operate in a way that, he
Interesting.
doesn't tell us in his word
Yeah.
that he does. And also because I was young and ignorant and stupid and made a lot of bad choices that, when you make a bad choice, you have to deal with the consequences of that choice. And sometimes
Yep.
those choices take a while to unwind. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to make good decisions while I'm dealing with the consequences of some not good decisions. And honestly, that took years to fully unwind. I'm probably still dealing with some of that. At 55 years old. I
I
mean,
get
I've
that.
made more than those. I made more bad decisions than just that in my life.
Sure.
So, I mean, is this giving you a sense of kind of what it was like when I say kind of chaotic and all these things that were happening all at once? It was, nah. Fast
Yeah,
forward,
totally.
I will tell you that after getting married, Daniel was born. That was all happening in like 1988, 89, I think 89-ish,
Okay.
right? 1990, the end of 1990s when mom and I got married. And then in 93, I went to Rhema. And I, that move for mom and that's where I actually learned how to, I learned what it meant to walk by faith. I learned meaning like to walk out based on the beliefs that I hold, right? And the
Yeah.
things that I see to be true, not just what other people tell me. I learned what it meant in that move to trust God. I learned, I mean, so here, when I went I felt like I should go, right? So I'm doing the application, and part of that you need a pastor's reference. So I met with the pastor of the church we were going to in Colorado Springs, and we talked through. And he asked me, he's like, "So what if you apply and you're gonna just move there, but what if they don't accept? What if you're not accepted?" I'm like, "Well, then I'll be there the next year. So then they will when they do accept me. Like I'll already be there. It'll be easier." Like I just knew I was supposed to do this, right? But then I got cold feet. I never sent the application. I did everything except actually put it in the mail. And I kid you not, the day before they were due, I had the most sickening feeling in my gut. Like I was about to make the most awful mistake. And I didn't know what it was. I was like, I don't know, why do I feel this way? And I realized, oh, the deadline's tomorrow. I need to do this. I need to get this. And I scrambled, man, to find everything, first of all, then get it all packaged up. Apparently, I'd left off a few blanks. I had to fill everything in that I missed. Get that into the FedEx by 3:30 so it could be there the next day for the deadline. And then that was pretty close to when school started. So we ended up moving before we knew if I was actually accepted into school.
That's right.
And so as part of the whole lead up to going there, we went to Tulsa and we scouted apartments and we did all the things to try to prepare before I got cold feet. And we'd even wrote a check at this one apartment and gave him a deposit to hold. We're like, okay, this could be cool.
Oh, wow.
And then when I backed out, I actually called that apartment and told them hey, tear up the check. I'm not coming. And they're like, okay, we'll do that. No problem. So when we moved there, we had, I'm not kidding, we had a white Acura Integra that we had actually paid somebody to put a hitch on the back, which is, why would you ever do that? It was really dumb. But we towed a small boat with it, but then we also had a 5x8 U-Haul trailer, and it had half of our belongings in it. And we booked, Grandma Sandy and Grandpa Gary were watching Daniel, and we booked to Tulsa. We had 4 days with this trailer as part of the rental. So we booked it to Tulsa. We were rolling in there at 4:30 in the afternoon, and maybe it was 3:30. It was late in the day, right? And we're like, we have to find a place to be able to drop the stuff, like a storage unit, so we can drop everything, so we can go back, get the other half, and come back, because we only have 4 days with the trailer. And so we start thinking, and it's not like the days of today where we can look on our cell phone and start doing this work on the internet. Cell phones were things. It's 1993. So that's cell phones were as big as, this at the time. And so we're like, we don't know where to go. We'll just find a place. We'll find somewhere. We'll get the yellow pages and we'll look. And we thought, let's just, before they close, let's swing by the apartments that we looked at. Let's just swing by there. And we had prayed. We're like, Lord, we need a place to drop our stuff and, all of that. We rolled into that apartment complex, and it's probably 4:45, maybe 5-ish. It was right about to close. And the young lady that was the leasing agent, she says, we walked in, hi, my name's Pete. This is, I had put a deposit down, but I told you to tear it up, but now I'm here and we're coming, and a long story and all of that. And is there any possibility that there's an apartment open? We'll just take whatever you have. She goes, oh, we've been expecting you. Hold on, wait a minute. And she grabs a file. She's like, oh yeah, I've got your check right here. It's all ready to go. It's unit number blah blah blah, and here's your key.
Huh? What?
I'm like, are you kidding me? Not only do I have a place to drop all my stuff, I get a hot shower. Awesome. And we didn't have anything. We did have a mattress, so we could throw the mattress on the floor and we slept. I mean, so when I think about the names of God, and one of the names that he's known by is Jehovah Jireh, that Hebrew word meaning sees our needs ahead of time and makes provision for them. That experience comes to mind. right?
Yeah.
Right. And so that the first years of my life were learning to like, hey, he has answers that I don't have. I think I need a storage unit. My plan is get a storage unit and just sleep in my car on the way home. He said, actually, your apartment's waiting for you. Right?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Is everything all smooth, unicorn and roses? No, because sometimes we make bad choices. And I've got a lot of those stories too. But it was this part of my life where I was learning to see and understand when I make choices that align with his word, when I make those choices, then things work a different way in my life than if I'm just completely going by my own plan.